Hi, this is Licia Berry of Frontier Woman. So I'm here to talk to you guys today about the inner frontier and what I mean when I say that I am the wild woman's guide to the frontier inside, which is apparently what I've been called. I am a long-term traveler, and that's an outer traveler as well as an inner traveler. I have been interested in travel since I was a young kid. Apparently, my first sentence was, I want to go on a trip, and that really has described me a lot in terms of my interest in seeking new boundaries and new frontiers and learning about new places and enjoying new cultures and finding out the history and the food and the people and just the land of new places. And so I've traveled quite a bit in my outer life. However, the best and most sustained and most rewarding travel I've done has been on my inner frontier. And what I mean by my inner frontier, or that frontier inside, is the psyche's landscape, the inner landscape of our soul and our psyche. And I've never found a richer, more interesting, and more rewarding kind of travel than to travel on the inner frontier. Many years of travel on my part have caused me to chronicle my journeys, and I'm talking about both the outer travel and the inner travel. Certainly the outer travel, years of crisscrossing the country and having marvelous adventures in 45 out of 50 states with my husband and with my family. And just by myself, I've taken lots of vision quests alone and put my foot on many a new soil and chronicled my journey through journaling and through drawing and through photography and certainly storytelling, oral tradition. But when I really discovered that my life changed for the better and really deepened in terms of getting to know who I really was and coming into relationship with my true self, was when I started chronicling my inner travels, my journey on the inside frontier. And what I mean by chronicling that is almost making maps using various creative means to document and to record the places that I found on my inner frontier. I've been doing this for a really long time. I started chronicling the inner frontier when I was a young person. Whether it was etching, making marks in my school books, or whether it was making paper dolls with different costumes for different kinds of adventures that I was having internally, or chronicling what was happening in my life through my photographic memory, and then later through inner process and through inner work to recover from difficult things in my childhood or from darknesses in my life, that I found it a good friend to have a place to actually record where I was traveling on my inner frontier. And so journaling, again, was a wonderful help. But I found particularly that making art about what I was encountering on my inner frontier was a way of bringing the invisible into the visible world so I could show people what I was encountering on that inner frontier, and found that was a way of making maps, that particularly drawing and collaging were ways of making a recording of what I found on my inner frontier. And it took a felt experience, a visceral, truly experiential situation from inside into the outer world, and bridged my inner and outer world in such a way that it made it real. It made my inner experience real. And so I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this particular journey that I went on. So this was back in 2007. Yes, it was in 2007. And I was living out in Colorado with my husband and children. We were actually in a temporary settling place on our 7-year vision quest, our spiritual odyssey that we took. And you can find out more about that at berrytrip.us. And in my process, I was really learning a lot about the feminine. I was learning a lot about what feminine energy was, like to be able to name that and quantify that, and to find that entry point to her, to the feminine in myself, after years and years of kind of trying on the masculine and trying to make it in a world that felt like masculine was the way that you had to be. And so I was really in the depths of learning about the feminine and really enjoying the discoveries of learning, what the feminine was. And one day we were in Tucson, Arizona, visiting family, and I was looking out over the desert, and suddenly I felt myself as if I had been dropped into an ocean, deep, deep, deep ocean. And I felt myself going down, and this is internal, okay? Like in my outer world, I'm talking to my husband and driving my kids to school and going to the grocery store and being, the soccer mom and this kind of thing. But inside, I felt myself descending. I felt this experience like you feel when you're going down in the water, and the pressure of the water on my skin. I could feel the cold, and I could feel that I was sinking down and down and down and down. And since it was an inner experience instead of an outer experience, I wasn't panicking, because I was like, okay, fortunately, this isn't really happening in physical world. I can breathe, I'm okay, so I'm just going to kind of be with this. And I noticed that whenever I would check in on the interior world, I was sinking, I was going down. And then eventually, very soon after this initial feeling of descent, I found myself one day to be at the bottom of the ocean. And again, this is all happening on the inner landscape. This is after years of traveling in the mountains and traveling on the deserts and going to canyons and rivers and beaches and gorges and forests and, being in every manner, in fact, even other worlds, in my inner frontier, all kinds of landscapes, beautiful, other kinds of landscapes. But this being at the bottom of the ocean was new for me. And I was kind of interested that it coincided with my getting to know the feminine. So I found that as I was traversing this period of time of being on the bottom of the ocean, and this went on for almost 3 years, that I noticed the sand under my feet, and I noticed that there were gems buried in the sand, and that I would see my hands kind of swashing off the sand off of these gems and kind of retrieving them, and would pick them up and look at them, and then suddenly they would become part of me. They would kind of come into my body in this sort of inner experience. I also noticed that there were a lot of helpers. There were a lot of sea creatures who were coming around to help me out. And they would swim by, and then they would say, look over here, and there would be a cave or a coral reef, or there would be some seagrass, and they would kind of nose in and show me that there was another gem that was buried inside. And so they were showing me the way to all of these gems internally. And then so I was getting it. Okay, so I'm harvesting treasure. So this is what I'm doing in this landscape inside. This particular life experience, this particular phase of my life is about harvesting gems in my inner frontier. And these gems must be part of me. Otherwise, why would I be harvesting them? Why would I be finding them? And so as this was going on, as this experience was happening over these 3 years, there was one particular helper, one particular experience that really brought it home for me. And that was when a giant sea turtle, probably a female loggerhead, since I knew what that looked like, huge sea turtle swam up to me in this, inner ocean. And on her back, she had a giant yellow gem. It was as big as her back that she was carrying on her back. And yellow, so I guess maybe a yellow topaz, something like that, very big. And she swims up to me, and I hear her say, "I've been carrying this for you for 5,000 years." And in that moment, I feel what this journey is about. And I recognize that she is a symbol for the feminine, the divine feminine, the great mother, and that the yellow gem is my power. And it's the biggest gem of all the gems that I've seen in this inner sea landscape. And so, I retrieve it from her and just watch as this thing, comes into my hands, and slowly I feel it becoming part of me. And this is what's so great about traveling the inner frontier, is that you have the experience internally, then you sit down and document the experience and write about it and think about it, and it starts to become apparent what it is that's happening, what you can translate it and make it meaningful into your life. And it reflects exactly where you are. So there are no mistakes. Even if you have some scary helpers, I had a few scary helpers. I made this collage to document this part of my life, and a couple of scary helpers, like there was a shark once, and there was a crab. I don't particularly like crabs very much because they used to pinch my toes in the waters of the Outer Banks where I grew up. But I eventually got to know that there were no enemies on this inner frontier. Even if I was afraid of them, they were still friends. They were helpers. They were companions, travel companions, and they were there to help me. And so I realized that you really can't meet anything that's not you on that journey to the inner frontier. And so I had this amazing experience that eventually ended where I came up. I felt myself one day starting to come up from the bottom of the ocean, and I guess that meant that I had harvested everything that I could down there, and it was time for me to move on. And so came up, and I remember the day that I felt like I felt sunlight on my face again, internally. Again, just, in my life, doing what needed to be done as a mom, as a wife, as a woman, as a responsible citizen, working and taking care of business. But, this internal experience was so rich and so full of reward for me. And so this is why we do this kind of exploration. There are some people who say, I'm a little scared to go inside. What if I find something in there that I don't like? And I say, you got to be an explorer. You got to think of yourself as a curious kid, or a scientist, or a cultural anthropologist, or a pioneer like Lewis and Clark. Going out in your canoe, having no idea what you're going to encounter, but you've got all the supplies you need. You have everything with you that you could possibly require for safe passage, and you've got your map-making materials, and creativity, such a wonderful way to record those journeys. And this is my old Stetson, and I noticed today that the moths have had a little fun with my Stetson, which I'm not too happy about. But I'm telling you that if you've got the right boots and you've got the right hat, and I do have the right boots, I don't know if you can see my boots, but you can have the best experience traveling the frontier inside, and what you harvest there is yourself. What you harvest there are your strengths, your talents, your supports that are available to you. Animal helpers, plant helpers, tree helpers, elementals that are there to support you. And you find out who you really are. We're taught to kind of blanket who we really are in an effort to fit in and conform and be how other people want us to be. And that leads to stagnation and depression and a feeling of loneliness and isolation. And when we travel the inner frontier, what we find is that we are, in fact, fabulous and interesting and fascinating, and our true power lay in wait, ready for us to come and find it. And so I advocate strongly that you join in me in my efforts to travel that inner frontier and learn more about yourself, and I want to let you know that I offer workshops and retreats and seminars and conferences and telesummits and partner with other wonderful women who are complementary advocates for women coming into their true power, and that you can find out more about me and my work at www.liciaberry.com. And I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you today about the inner frontier, and yeehaw from the Wild Woman's Guide to the Frontier Inside. Blessings.